Good afternoon. This is United Medical ACO. My name is Kemal Erkan. Today is April 21st, 2023. Our weekly event, we'll be discussing several different topics today. First, we have a presentation from our RCM team, and our Director of Revenue Cycle Management, Beste Kuru, will be joining me in a minute, and we'll discuss the holistic approach of the RCM. Then we are going to go to global and the US economy and the healthcare related topics. And Sean is going to join me after we have Beste go through her presentation. So I'm going to ask her to join me.
Hi, Kemal. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Beste, how are you doing?
Good. Thank you.
So I know today is a holiday in our Turkey office, well, in Turkey. Right, so I do want to wish everyone happy Bayram. Herkesin bayramı mübarek olsun.
Likewise, iyi bayramlar. Happy Eid, everyone. Thanks for having me, Kemal. I did want to talk about revenue cycle management department as a whole and our holistic approach to claims and revenue cycle management for our clients. I want to start off actually giving some highlights from 2022 from the work we did for our clients. Every month, actually on a quarterly basis, we are trying to gather some feedback from our clients. And based on the client satisfaction surveys we completed in 2022, our satisfaction rate is actually at 98.8%. So for that success and for the work they always do with the best interest of clients in mind, I want to thank my team and my managers. They're doing an outstanding job, and they are behind the success of this company, of this department. You'll notice we have seen some significant improvements for the example clients I provided there. For example, for a neurology client, we improved their days in AR by about 64%, which has actually reflected as a 80% improvement in their insurance over 90-day balance. Similarly, for a pulmonary and sleep client, we were able to improve their days in AR about 28%, and their over 90 days balance actually improved by 48%. These are good numbers. These are good values. It's not just like what reflects on the numbers come out, but also the feedback we get from the clients in the meetings or in writing. For example, a PCP group in Delaware said, we have the best billing team we have ever had in 15 plus years. We get prompt response and assistance with any issues. This is a team we would not want to see change. So this is very valuable to hear directly from the clients. And we strive to do the best for our clients across the nation. We are servicing actually more than 23 specialties across the United States, and it's growing. Speaking of the team, we also strive to go for the best education possible. Continued education is one of our core values at United Medical. And for that, we partnered with MGMA, Medical Group Management Association. Currently, all our leadership hold their ACMP certifications, and our managers either already have their certification or they are working towards achieving that as well. So that's definitely a plus.
Mm-hmm. So now with the approach, of course, that's really what makes us different, maybe is our approach, right? So understanding the client as whole, not necessarily like we are just doing one service or the two services that they need out of 10. That's one approaches we have is this is a business office for these clients. So it's not a vendor who's providing service, Rather, we are the central business office. Like in my opinion, that also makes it extremely important for our clients, which does impact in a good way our relationship with them. That's why we have these long-term 21, 22 years
Partnerships, right?
relationship with these clients. Yeah.
I totally agree, and it really boils down to showing ownership and accountability. I think we act and work on the accounts as if they're our own. You're not just a vendor working on your account, and accountability part is also true. From the moment the charges are entered in the chart, right? They flow through the practice management system. We start at that level, work any system issues, if any, we submit the claims, and then afterwards, like, we just make sure any rejections, denials, issues at the claim level are managed and resolved with the payers. Mm-hmm. We post all the payments, but it doesn't just stop there. We want to make sure our providers who already rendered those services get reimbursed at the contracted values. And if there's any need for escalation, we just don't stop at the denial, denied, but we escalate with appeals, even go to a commissioner office as needed, as relevant. And we try to make sure that there's improved revenues for the client.
So you mentioned the MGMA partnership. Let's elaborate that a little bit. So when we say partnership, what do we mean there?
Sure. Kemal, MGMA is, again, a Medical Group Management Association. It's a industry-wide, well-recognized institution. We actually take even some of the industry-based metrics, KPIs. We do take a benchmarking information from them as well. But from partnership perspective, I want to say MGMA provides a very nice platform for continued education, and we are enrolled there as an institution. So it is a platform available for all of our employees, as well as actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but even for client offices, right? If their staff is interested, that resource is available to them. There's live sessions, there's, ebooks, information pieces, data available to everyone. But that platform also ensures there's a system in place that to identify the individuals actually who are eligible for ACM PE certification, which is the American College of Medical Practice Executives. And that is what we are working as a team to achieve.
So you mentioned for clients, so I can actually elaborate that a little bit more. So as soon as we have a new user registered in our system, one of our consultants communicates that with MGMA. We add their email account, and we generate an account for them, which because of the partner level access we have, so then we have unlimited access to all the information that MGMA has. And MGMA is the most prestigious medical management group in the United States. We also certification, it's almost it's like a board for us. Like the lawyers, they take their bar exam, doctors, they take their, and then we take the MGMA ACMPE. It's a board in which right now, I believe 5, 6, 7 or 8 individuals who are already certified. And
correct, I will say at least. Yeah.
You are actually you are the first one for the fellowship, which is it's 2 levels. So it's an important achievement, especially for the work that we do, because information changes every year. What we know 2 years ago, it doesn't apply to this year. What we understood 5 years ago, today it's totally different. So when there's a change like that, continuing education is the key for our employees, our leadership to be up to date, stay up to date with everything else that's happening. And that's why MGMA is probably the best channel for us to get that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And yes, I did recently complete my fellowship as well, which was a rewarding, I guess, like a process for me. It is important that like that resource is available to all of our employees and clients, because there's a lot of things that anyone can learn from it, but also stay up to date, right, with all the improvements and like the changes happening with payers at the government or commercial level.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, anything else you wanted to add?
I think that's about it. I just want to also mention that like it's not just the work the team does, but we have different layers of communication channels available between my team and the clients. We do always try to engage the provider owners and practice administrators, having monthly meetings to review their KPIs and metrics, as well as meeting the office staff to provide feedback on their flow. But that was about it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I know your team is part of our regular episodes, and
they are
trying to create a new culture or build on our culture, which is one of it is these presentations that we are doing. Just like we do it on the clinical side, we do it on the RCM side as well, and it makes it even more effective and beneficial for everyone who are following us. It's a really good way of communicating with other people. Thank you for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. So I'm going to let Sean Donegan in. And Sean, so we have a lot of new updates on the existing issues.
We do indeed.
So we're going to start with the tough topic, right? The SB 5599. I wish I don't have to memorize any of the bill numbers, but this one,
easy one, a little repeat right there. 5599, right?
5599. So all right.
Yes. So just as a recap on some of the issues we've been covering in recent sessions, we know this bill is kind of relating to the topic of that transgender, the gender affirming care, and kind of the role that the government is now playing or attempting to play in the lives of people who maybe identifies a certain way. And what we're doing here, just kind of taking a step back and looking from a holistic approach. I know we just mentioned the RCM from the holistic approach. Funny we're saying that here too, and kind of seeing what may be the driving force behind some of these bills. This one's one we're going to specifically. It's actually coming out of the state of Washington. And then we're going to kind of peel back some of the layers and kind of dissect it a little bit right here.
So this is an important topic. So we are talking about gender affirming care without parental consent. So what does that mean? So you were communicating some of the stuff with me earlier. So patients center and treat individuals holistically, right? So now earlier to that, these are the individuals who are going through perhaps transition.
Yeah, maybe questioning. It's covering basically all stages too, whether maybe they're starting to question or feel a certain way versus if they're at the stage where they're looking for surgical options.
It encompasses a range of social, psychological, behavioral, and medical intervention designed to support and affirm an individual's gender identity. So, I think it was in the last 12 to 15 months, we were more educated with this. So we get more education. So at first, it started with our UPenn hero, Leah Thomas, who's the new record winning swimmer, right? So she's number one.
Yeah, you want
in not just in the United States, right? So her time probably is best, except that she is not a she. So
still had full male.
Yeah, full male, everything. So now she's over 18 and over 21. All these things are happening. The problem that we have is now, especially in the United States, and most people who are watching this from other countries, including my home country, Turkey, many people won't understand until they experience that here. So what I'm about to say is that, so in Turkey, for example, if you are under 18, you can still buy cigarettes, even though it's against the law. In this country, you can't. If you are under 21, you cannot drink alcohol, or you cannot buy alcohol. 21. So when did you learn? When did you get your license to drive?
Driver's license. So you get your learner's permit for New York. The state goes for 16.
16. So you were able to drive when you were not allowed to buy alcohol or cigarette.
Correct, or a lotto ticket.
And you would be in huge trouble. And not only that, if you or your friends underage, if you guys were drinking in your parents' home, your parents can be responsible for those other kids who are in your house underage drinking.
Child endangerment,
So the law used to protect kids. You agree or disagree, but that's how it was. So it was trying to protect kids, and when they are being abused, yes, social services can help, and then we would be
CPS or something.
We would be some to a level we would support that, but now the law says this person who cannot buy cigarette or cannot buy alcohol, cannot get into a bar,
can't get a tattoo.
They cannot get a tattoo, but they can run away just because their parents are not agreeing with them. And then now the law is going to protect these individuals in a way that they now can be, they don't have to really call the parents to let them know.
Yeah, it's kind of like a secretive protective blanket that they're putting on.
Every time there's some movement, like any type, I always look at the motivation behind it. So let's just use some examples. Let's say if you just the typical, right? The Democrats are more supportive of the welfare, and because they want to be elected and they want to show that to others. Republicans are more business oriented, and then they are focusing on the business people, blah blah blah. Right? You know what the motivation is because there's a big return at the end of the day. This one is the one that I'm kind of struggling with because I don't see who is the focus and what motivates and how and who is going to benefit from this at what level. So the statistics that we go by is 0.5% of the population may or may not be going through this gender identification issue. And now we make this the center of attention. So what motivates this individual, Marco Lias? We invited him for the show and haven't heard back from him. And I'm hoping that we can have this conversation with him. But what motivates these individuals to go out there and then just open this up and then make this the national headline? Because this is now even we are talking about.
So as you're saying there, just to hit that last point you're saying where it's 0.4, 0.5% of the population, that's the number of all citizens. So think about what even smaller number would be of those under the age of 18. So we're talking about an even smaller fraction of a percentage that this is actually going after to impact. And like you're saying, what is that motivation where just kind of going back to the other points you're saying where before the age of 18, you can't, it was cigarettes, lotto ticket, tattoo, you need to have your parents' permission. As you're saying, it was to protect them. So even thinking back to some of the programs they had in school, I think it was like the DARE program to keep kids off of drugs, alcohol. And the main thing they always said behind that was because children's brains are, number one, still developing. So you can't make as rational decisions and think about the long-term consequences of things. And then number two, going along the lines of they're not in the long term with decision making that your frontal lobe is still developing into your early mid-20s is when the adult ones you can finally understand proper consequences with those decisions. So
Correct.
You're saying to protect them, it's a little kind of the opposite now if you're saying that you're going to give them permission because you may be more impulsive or open to that peer pressure where all of a sudden you just want to act on an impulse and not realizing, is this what I really want, weeks from now, years from now, whereas some of these things that they may act on, it's irreversible.
So, well, those are all good points, right? So, I think, so you said you cannot get a tattoo before age 18, right? So I have 3 tattoos. I was 36, 37 when I got them. I had to think about it. So I'm like, and then I said, you know what, I'm 35, 36 years old. So I think if I still want it, then I can get it. But if my kids want to get, or my nephews, since I don't have kids, I would not actually, not only I would not support them, but I would make sure that they would wait until they're old enough. Usually that's about 25. So 25 is a good number for a lot of things. For example, you cannot get a loaner car if you are not 25, or you cannot rent a car.
Exactly.
Again, in the United States, if you are under 25, right?
Or your car insurance is way higher premiums if you're under. They think you're more risk or more liability.
Correct. So there is a reason for that. There is a scientific reason. It's because we are still developing. Now, my other concern is many people, many kids, they have so many troubles, just like all of us, when we were a teenager. I do remember my teenager years, and it's not like you are always trying to get in trouble and your parents were trying to protect you. But there's always this clash between you and the parents, right? Because you want to do things and then your body is just going crazy and your mind is exploding, and yet your parents says, well, you have to be home by this time. You cannot go there. You cannot do this. You cannot be friends with those people. You cannot, and then you would be like, why? And then you have this tension between you and the parents. That's natural. And the parents' job is to discipline, teach, guide these individuals. Even sometimes it doesn't look good on the surface. So sometimes you have to penalize them. So now you are interfering with this relationship, the core relationship with the family values. You are saying that, you know what, your kids are going to have an issue. Like if a kid has a sexual identity issue, perhaps, because most teenagers are also kind of confused too. They may not know who they are until later, but if you are guiding them in one direction, they may follow that. If they're exposed to one more than the others, when you normalize certain things in the environment that we live in, it may actually not help them, and then they may regret certain things later on. Now we talk about not a tattoo or not this or not that, the transformation of someone's body. This is a huge undertaking. So even for parents, and even someone who's 19, even someone who's 23, 4, 5. So now you don't actually promote this in some ways. The government, not you personally, but the government shouldn't be making these things easier, because as soon as that kid has these, they are clashing with the family, they're going to run away, and then they don't have to call the parents. And then now, who's going to actually? Now, by the way, these shelters we talk about, they're not your best places to live in, so they're horrible.
Yeah,
I mean, you have to. It's almost like another type of prison. Well, like how in the prison, in order to survive, you have to do certain things, right? So you can't just live with
Yeah, no one's going to be taking care. Like you're saying, they're literally running away. They're losing those parents who are providing for them. So you're losing that. So think about who's going to be funding these types of shelters to be, where are they going to get their food from?
Actually replace the parent.
Yeah, if it's a child, so you have a 12-year-old, 13-year-old running away, they're not going to be self-sufficient, self-supporting on, I can, pay for this, get my own food. So who will they be relying on? And then is it going to then down the road, taxpayers now be funding for this?
But also, how are they going to learn certain things? So I'm going to go back to this motivation issue, and because part of this show that we do, we are communicating also our health-related issues as well here, right? So, and I kind of like to put things in the healthcare perspective, so then we can understand certain things. And I use a lot of analogies, as you know by now. So when I don't understand the motivation of something, I become so difficult because I cannot process it, so then I can move on. I have to understand.
It has to make sense.
So it has to make sense. It has to make common sense. And then common sense, hopefully commonly practiced, but that's not the case. But I need to understand. So once I understand, then I won't try to challenge that if that's not what I want or that's where we want to be. So I'm going to give you an example, so we'll come back to this. So I've been in the medical field since May 2000. That's this May, it's going to be 23 years fully. Now, this 23 years is not someone else's 23 years. Consider that I worked like 65 to 80 hours a week for that time. That's probably equivalent of someone's 50 years or like 40 years. So it's a long time. But 12 years into that, when the value-based contracting started, so we had to have contracts, or we have to go to the insurances, have partnerships where we can follow the triple aim, and then we can now reduce the cost, because that's one of the most expensive items in our books, individuals and the companies. So then we sit down with the insurance companies. Now we call them insurance companies, and I may have mentioned this in some of our other sessions. Insurance companies, just because that's out of habit. None of the insurance companies are fully insured. They're not fully insured. They're not, people they're insuring are not 100% insured by them. What I mean by that is, so examples of like commercial insurances that we have, Aetna, Highmark. These commercial insurance companies are only dealing with the actual insured risk population at 25%. So 75% of their business is coming from the term under third-party administrator, TPA we call. What TPA is that there are self-funded employers, and then the insurance company uses their network, and then they process their claims. So it's kind of like a convenient service for those self-funded people, self-funded employers. So trying to make this easier for everyone. So just look at this all overall. Like when you are called insurance company, you are only 25% insurance company, but 75% you are not. So the reason I'm explaining this is because when we were meeting with one of the local commercials, this is 2012, 12 years into medical field, and I didn't know what TPA meant. I didn't. So because I didn't know that, when this was that time Blue Cross of Delaware, the medical director, Paul Kaplan, when he was insisting on I was not helping them by reducing the cost, it just didn't make sense. I'm like, why? Like trying to understand the motivation. Why would it be? Because here's everything that we want to do, and everyone else wants to do. This should be helping you. When he's saying no, then the missing piece was what motivates him. So going back to our SP 5599, that's what I don't still understand. What motivates this? Who's this going to help or who's this going to harm, right? Yeah. Going back to the example that we have, then Dr. Kaplan goes, well, you're not helping when you are cutting my total cost, because I'm 75% TPA and I make my money based on the post expenses of the self-funded plans. So if you reduce the total expense of healthcare, you are going to reduce their income from that 75% of the pot. That's where the trouble is. Then when he explained that to me, first I was a little bit embarrassed that I didn't know that. Second, I'm like, holy shit, like, how did I not know this? And then it made so much sense.
Yeah.
So this is 2012, May, probably. Then 2016, Medicare acknowledged and recognized us as a clinically integrated group because we are owned by so many different individuals for the practices side. It's not one tax ID. So 4 years after this, after Medicare, after the federal government recognized us, then everyone else followed that. So then they had to do it at that point. It was not an option. But the example that I have here is I didn't know, and I didn't know what motivating them. And then once I understood that piece, I was fully fine with that.
Yeah.
Didn't bother because we just needed to wait to see when this thing can be done. And then that was with Medicare. Now, here in this this bill, the SB 5599, what is the motivation? I can't find it.
Yeah. So like you're saying, once you found out the motivation for the healthcare example you had there, it kind of clicked to you. So you're making sense of, oh, of course they'd want to have cost higher because that's going to increase their revenue stream. Total logical sense. Until you were given that piece of information, for you, you're kind of left confused because originally you're thinking, why wouldn't they want to cut costs and save the money? But once you found out that 75% of that bulk, the income was because of the higher cost, of course.
Like if I was running the state of Delaware, I would bring a copay, a very small copay for Medicaid population. That's about 30% of this population, the state. $2, $4, $5, I don't know, very small, minimum. Why? Because there is some ownership on the patient side, some accountability, because the compliance rate is a little bit lower with the Medicaid population because there's no financial responsibility on the individual because there's no copay, you cannot bill them, you cannot charge them no show. So they don't show up.
Kind of
so
range,
if you do like even $3 copay, so I made this suggestion to one of the governors.
I remember, I know where the story's going. Yep.
So, and then he said, come on, look, do you think I would be ever elected if I do this, right? So yes, it makes sense, but then something makes more sense because it's going to affect 30% of the population. Now, every 2 years or 4 years, I have to be elected. How am I going to get there? And it makes so much sense, right?
Yeah,
so because there's a big population is being impacted by this. So then even sometimes you make these bad, irresponsible decisions, knowing that this guarantees your job, you do it. But why is this happening? That's where where I'm kind of lacking.
Yes, as you're saying with that example, he's not going to support something that would increase, having that minimal copay because the thing he values more is all those, votes. So to get reelected, obviously not going to vote for him if, he's supporting having this hunk of the population pay this copay. But as what you're saying here, this example, number one, it's such a fraction of a percentage of who it's actually going out impacting. So number one, we're seeing a little bit of confusion there. It's not like, 40% of the population's, experiencing this. It just makes clear sense on why we're going to support it. It's such a fractional. So that's why we're kind of having this trouble. My initial reaction was, is it potentially being used as not necessarily a diversion or like a distraction, but is there a deeper thing that is kind of being hidden behind this that they're saying, look at this little speck of it right here, this 0.4%, but really what we're kind of trying to push, the sleight of hand where they want your eye to be drawn to this. They're pushing, even like the media are saying, it's all in the news. It's so focused on it, but is there something kind of lurking? Like think about an iceberg, only 10% above the water. Here's what we're showing you, really 0.4%. But what's really that big hunk of it below is what we're trying to figure out.
It's playing with the social dynamics, and I think that can be disruptive and very dangerous for the population that we live in. So I really want to talk to him. I'm going to insist on our invitation, and hopefully
call him late hours in the night.
We'll be sending so many emails to him so that you can explain it to me, because this is not a bill to protect the youth, right? So because that was already in place.
Mhm.
This is changing. I just want to make sure people who
Yeah,
are
definitely.
kind of listening on and off. This is changing, adding something to the existing protection that you'd have already, is saying that, well, you don't have to let your parents know if you have good, reasonable,
Yeah.
reasonable
or proof,
reasons, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a term that they use. It's pretty much like if it's acceptable in some standards, so that you don't have to actually let the parents know. Well, that's horrible.
Mhm.
And I would ask him if he has kids, and then what he does with his kids. And if this happens and someone comes and the government comes and takes his kids, are they going to be happy with this? Now, this is actually, the legislations and regulations in this country. At some point, it becomes. I think it's going to hit the wall at some point, and I'm going to actually explain this a little bit differently. With the child abuse, if 2 years from now, if you have a kid and then you take your kid to a doctor's office, and if there's a bruise on his arm,
Right.
guess what's going to happen? You are going to be suspected for child abuse because kids cannot tell whether or not there's this, like, why this happened, and then you may be in trouble. Right. If the kid actually really fell down and hurt their head, they will actually question you for the child abuse again. So this is already happening, and the doctors who don't report it, they can get in trouble.
Yeah, they're liable too. Yeah.
So like the regulation is so bad already on providers, on physicians. So because now it becomes doctors' problems. Why did you not question this?
Yeah, you should have seen
this
it.
kid clearly was abused or clearly was hurt. But the kid, if it was in my childhood, me and my brother, we were hurting each other all day long. So we would be taken by the government quickly, like by age 7, we would be done. So that's what the part of, like, if you become the target of if you become the target of the law enforcement, and then you are an easy target, and that you as a parent, that's where the government is going to have a huge issue, because you really don't want to get into the family dynamics as long as it's not about real abuse and real real abuse. So,
right, and that's kind of scary too, to think about the fact that, obviously there are instances that happens where there is like an actual abusive household where you want to get that child out of there, but the fact of the government's kind of going to be stepping in and saying how you can, like you're saying, that household dynamic on the discipline, and the fact of, in Washington, I know some of the comments too, they're saying that a bulk of the population is opposing this. They're definitely not for it, but you'll be having children running away from neighboring states. And as you're saying, they don't have to let the parents know any details on their whereabouts because they're going to be protected. So think about how scary it is if you're a parent, your child ran away, you have no idea what happened to them. But meanwhile, the government and in Washington say, like, they know this child's here, but you could think they're dead from child's missing. You have no idea, and they're not going to provide you any information.
Again, they're probably missing on this issue of discipline, and really, so discipline is not the easiest habit or easiest strength that we develop right away. So it requires practice, and to get to that level, your parents have to do. I'm so glad that my parents did what they did with us, because that's why we are here today. But if we didn't have any guidance, we would be in all different places today. So that's let's see what's going to come out of that. Now, our next topic is Mr. Trump, Fox News, and
so
more, right? So
as you get that loaded up, one of the headlines, just in case everyone didn't see the news, but back to that 2020 election, Fox News actually agreed to pay a settlement against it looks like it was Dominion Voting Systems, the initial one, And that was regarding that the Fox News channel and company were kind of saying that this voting system, Dominion voting systems, kind of helped to rig the election. So I think it was originally like a $1.6 billion defamation that was settled for 700 and some odd million. But interesting enough, though, is once that settlement was announced, a separate voting company said, "Oh yeah, we're also going to sue too." Once they saw, so kind of trying to ride the coattail on that. Maybe
the issue with the lawsuits is sometimes like you don't want to fight them and you want to settle because when you are, when you are going to the courts, then you spend more time and money. But then if you don't fight and if you settle, that can become a precedent for other examples. Like this happens in our business. So if we take some responsibility, that's not our fault, but we take that as a responsibility, another client in the future can use that against us, saying that, well, you did this with that client, and now that's an example and a reference point. So, but I was trying to actually get more information on this one, but why, how is this different than Mark Zuckerberg spending $400 million to support the Democrats with Facebook?
Right? Is that not having an impact? And
right. So if it's about, like, again, it's about the impact on the election. Elon Musk actually was just saying this a couple of days ago. 400 million Zuckerberg spent through Facebook and Instagram, right? That's owned by them.
Yep, same parent company.
400 million to support his own beliefs. So his own beliefs with the kids and any age and any different age have access to. Then you see certain things and you kind of look at them, and then you can be influenced based on who you are and how you receive your information.
Yeah, definitely, you can be persuaded, right? One way or another.
So I don't know why he doesn't get in trouble, but then this actually, we probably need to look into it a little bit more. But I still don't know if this is a fact that Zuckerberg did what he did. I don't see how that's different than this.
No, yeah, I mean, if you're having it in black and white terms of, yes, did they support a certain political agenda for this party versus as opposed to that one? Yes. Did you have monetary behind it? Yeah, like, there you go.
And then
so
why? What's the motivation and how this happened? That just doesn't make sense.
Another one too. It's a little bit different, but on the similar ideas. We think about the crypto guy from FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried or whatever. He was like the second highest donor to the Democratic Party when he lost all the crypto funds. If you remember that, we had touched on him a little while back. It was all for the Democratic Party, and it's like, how is that not influential? Having supporting versus
with the elections, you know about these super PACs, right? So, because I got in trouble with the election issue, with the campaign issue back in 2012, and it was about $1,500 that they were questioning. So, same year, the super PAC, led by one of the big business men, gave one of the candidates almost $10 million, $50 million. If it's about the influence on the individual, so I got in trouble for $1,500. Maybe we'll talk about this in one of our sessions. This was so unfair, how this happened and how it's being processed. But then you sometimes settle these things just so that you don't want to be, going through the court and paying legal fees and this and that. But then there's other consequences. So you have to really be careful. And I think Fox News made a mistake here by settling, because now the second one is out, and
so everyone else is going to kind of join that bandwagon of, oh, we were also mentioned too. But also on this video too, just saying kind of that little hypocrisy of it. You're going to do it for one, do it for the other. The other comparison we had here was with that Trump trial. We know the headlines, he tried delaying. I think the one specific case related to the rape, they did not delay that one. He was trying to postpone it. But we were thinking about going after former presidents, and if everyone's so adamant on getting Trump on, I think it was 36 different charges with those. If you look back to another comparison on Bill Clinton, flat out lying to the public, video press conference of not having.
I mentioned that he was already in White House when that happened.
Right.
So what happened with Trump, he was not the president.
Yeah,
So this was
beforehand.
prior to that.
So you'd think that one's even worse.
Yes.
And you think that one would be pursued even harder. And
Yes,
more harshly.
he was doing it as a government head of the state. So Trump was doing it as a businessman. So, I mean,
again, hypocrisy right
it's
there.
kind of like really sad that I have to compare them and then just say that Trump is right, but he's less at fault than Bill Clinton was from that time.
Yeah. So the hypocrisy there is definitely
well, that's the world that we live in. So whoever has the media power, they will put their story out there, and then they will lead. So that's why we have to be careful with what we are being told, what we are being given, where we get our information, how we are confirming our information, and that's one of the this all goes to like getting information or putting information out there and understanding the cyber world. Cyber world is the new reality, but if it's not regulated, it can actually easily put a lot of people in trouble, even if they are not at fault, or if they have no way of defending themselves. Like, if you are, when you put a review for certain things, if you didn't purchase that, you shouldn't put a review, right?
Yeah.
Or if you are saying something publicly, and if you are doing that from a channel of like one of these, like the Glassdoor and the other type of businesses, you should put your identity there. Because you should be in the real world and not the cyber world, but then you would be doing that with your identity. So if you are doing this and then people are making money, companies are making money because you are as an individual or you are as a business, you are defenseless, then this is where we need the law to protect us. So like the Glassdoor, like we stop worrying about them anymore, but you see people who are anonymous, and I actually demonstrated that. I have an article on my LinkedIn page available for public. So record everything that I did with a couple different accounts and then see if I'm able to put a review for X business versus Y business. Yeah, you're able to. You don't
never
have
worked
to,
there ever in your life.
And you can track someone. So that needs to be part of the regulation. And this is, again, it doesn't have to be, it's the Democrats or it's the Republican. Because it's right, it needs to be done. So, but now whoever's in power is going to actually
what's right.
drive us to their direction. And we really need to be careful with those. So, and our last
time we had
is, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say the last one we have there is kind of focused. If you look at the last one, their interest rate with the mortgage climbing again, most in 2 months, and we're looking at that world debt clock. The fact of that it's at
31,700,000,000,000.
Yep.
Am I right?
Yeah, 31.697. So basically, 31.7. So kind of insane. I think when we first started looking at it, it was at 20.
So when we started, like first time actually, it was right before 2020. It was 19 trillion. So that's
I came in. It was like October of 21. So even then, think about a few $1 trillion since.
So on that, I don't know if it's going to come up on the video at some point, but I think there's something really interesting that I see with that US clock. When you look at it, the world one, these countries who don't owe as much, like China, Russia, India, Turkey, Brazil, their national debt ratio is so much lower than those the Western countries. Most of Europe is in huge trouble. So like 100% to 250%. And now we see from the global currency how those countries with low national debt, they are actually getting together to make certain changes. And I think they're going to be successful. And that's going to impact us individually here in this country. That's why we talk about certain issues because we spend 20 minutes on some irresponsible person from Washington State and his bill, but
Right.
then we are not talking about real issues.
We'd rather be able to talk that much in detail about what
Right.
the US government's doing regarding
Because
this.
if the focus is not in the right place, we are going to get in trouble. This may not happen in 1 or 2 years, but if this doesn't change, it will happen. It will happen in the next 6 to 8 years. So, and I think we are going to see that. So that's going to, we are young enough to probably experience that. And I don't want to be at that point. I want us to get our act together and not to waste time. So I guess we'll see where we are going to be.
Yeah, I was just saying again, long term, looking at that, you want to be able to, again, with that iceberg comparison, the analogy of is the media and everyone's kind of distracting you and saying, look at this is what you should be worried about. Whereas like the economy, that impacts everyone regardless of how you identify, what gender you are, how old you are, you're going to be impacted. You know, if you're alive, the economy is impacting. So
that's why it's important, right? So, today we don't have our Bariatric Friday session, but we'll be back next week.
All right.
And we are
next week
informed with.
Next week, we're hoping to do our 2 p.m. for the book club with Dr. Hiraga's book.
That's with Katie and.
Yep, a couple of people in the office.
Like 6 or 7 other individuals from United Medical.
So that's our plan, is to have the book club for next week. And then we have Senator Townsend is in May, and we also have our wellness fund. I know you're going away.
Maybe we'll have this guy, Marco. I'll follow up with him, so I won't leave him alone until we get an answer from him.
Right.
So, and other than that, so we are good for today. And then our board meeting with United Medical ACO is next week on Thursday. I know some of our providers are texting me, so then hopefully they're watching this so that they can get their information from the right place. And then we'll be back next week, same time. Thank you for being with us. Thank you.